You just hit play on TechVibe Pittsburgh, your front row seat to Pittsburgh's technology and innovation ecosystem. I'm your host, Jonathan Kirsting with the Pittsburgh Technology Council. The Pittsburgh Opera is celebrating its 86th season with a tech-infused production of Madame Butterfly, directed by Matthew Ozawa. Ozawa, who's been an opera stage director for 20 years, has integrated virtual reality and gaming aesthetics to modernize this classic opera. Production, which premiered in Cincinnati, features Japanese designers and aims to attract new audiences. Chris Cox, the director of marketing and communications at the Pittsburgh Opera, emphasizes the opera's commitment to diverse programming and collaborative efforts with other opera companies. The Pittsburgh performances are scheduled for March 22nd through the 30th at the Benham Center, with a special 20% discount code for Pittsburgh Technology Council members if they use PTC at registration. Let's jump in with Matthew and Chris to learn more about this awesome production of Madame Butterfly and how it embraces technology. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. At the Tech Council, we just believe that our tech ecosystem, without the arts, we don't have anything. This is like an underpinning of making an awesome community and ecosystem here in Pittsburgh. And when I got word of what was going on with Madame Butterfly coming out with a technology twist, this is gonna be such a fun conversation. So Chris and Matthew, thanks for hanging out with me today. So we always want to start with introductions. Chris, first tell us about yourself and of course the Pittsburgh Opera. I think people may be really surprised as to the impact and the reach that the Pittsburgh Opera has here.
Sure. My name's Chris Cox. I'm Director of Marketing and Communications for Pittsburgh Opera. Pittsburgh Opera is one of the oldest opera companies in the country. We are currently in the midst of our 86th season. We were founded back in the 1930s, and we do 5 or 6 different opera productions every season at a range of venues throughout Pittsburgh, including the Benham Center, including Kappa Theater, August Wilson Center, the Byam, our own building, the Bitz Opera Factory here in the Strip District. And we really pride ourselves on bringing our audiences a wide variety of repertoire of the highest quality.
And you guys do that day in, day out. And which is why you guys are up in your game this year when you're working with Matthew here on this production of Madame Butterfly. So Matthew, so excited to talk to you today. First off, tell us about yourself, Matthew. Create some pretty cool stuff, that's for sure.
Thanks. Matthew Ozawa here. I am an opera stage director. And so I bring stories to life. I make the invisible visible through a lot of imagination, collaboration with various artists, from scenic designers and video and costume, lighting, singers, musicians, the whole gamut. I've been in the industry now for 20 years. So I've directed, I think, at around 28 different cities around the US, and I've directed around the world. And I love opera. It's the synthesis of all of the art forms. It's bold, it's brash, it's big, it's extremely fantastical. And so a real perfect setting for, I think, taking something like Madame Butterfly that's, I think, beloved by the opera world, has so much tradition, but obviously as an Asian American and one of the few Asian Americans in the industry, as a stage director, really seeing it through a new lens for contemporary society.
That is what had me so excited, because when Chris first told me about this coming to Pittsburgh, which we're so excited that you're bringing this to Pittsburgh, and we know you're getting
So excited
here. And the fact that you're able to address so many issues and with technology, integrating technology like virtual reality into this. What was your inspiration to say that you wanted to change this thing up? You wanted to bring it into, I hate saying modern times, but bring it to something that's very relevant for us today, and even attract new audiences who would probably maybe not even consider going to the opera, but be like, my goodness, this is going to be like an artistic experience that's going to hit all the senses, right?
Yeah. I think that the original sort of source of inspiration was I had done the production a number of times in a more traditional fashion.
Mhm.
I am half Japanese myself. And so this sort of East-West conflict, and also the love between Pinkerton, an American naval officer, and Butterfly, a young Japanese geisha, I think was at the center of me wanting to delve into a piece like Butterfly, but nervous about it because historically the piece has brought to light forms of appropriation or yellowface, because historically it's been only Caucasians who portray Japanese people and interpret that culture. And here we are in American society. My father was actually born in an internment camp during World War II. I'm fourth generation Japanese. And so I thought it's really important to enable those who may not have been to opera and or may feel distanced by the piece to be able to also appreciate it as much as those who love the tradition. And so I brought together three female Japanese designers to collaborate with to see the piece in a new lens. And I think the big thing we realized was we said, this actually isn't quite our story because it's not fully reality. It is a fantastical look at a culture and a world. And the more we thought about fantasy versus reality, what is perception and what do we make reality from fantasy? We suddenly decided to delve into the world of VR and the world of gaming and the idea of it being many visuals being influenced by anime and manga, sort of connection with Japan and the East, but simultaneous the nature of AI and VR evolving so rapidly. Can those worlds start to become someone's true reality was a question we were wanting to pose.
Wow. And you fully explored that by bringing these technologies in. And was it scary in a certain way to take something, one of these classic stories, and then really flip it around by doing this? It's almost like you're messing with something maybe that shouldn't be messed with, but I'm glad you messed with it.
Oh, yeah. I remember when we opened it in Cincinnati, I was terrified that the audience was going to boo me on the stage because we are seeing it in a different lens. And so we flip the narrative. Simultaneously, we do honor a lot of the beauty of the tradition. People love seeing the cherry blossoms fall. They want to see the geishas come in with their parasols. And so we bring all of that to life, but we do so in a really heightened visual realm. And while we wanted to lean into VR gaming aesthetic, but this is interesting to note for your viewers and your listeners, is that we decided not to actually bring in full video technology onto the stage. We thought that might actually lure people the wrong way into actually being sucked into it. And so we wanted to create designs that mimic and are reminiscent of it. He does put on like an Oculus Quest 2. So he does put on like an actual VR headset as we go into the VR world.
Okay.
But the VR world's created by stage
By
designers.
designers, right. So you're balancing this very fine line of taking the tech, but still staying to the tradition of using actual sets and then mixing the story up like that. That is, I can see why, Chris, why you're so excited to be bringing this to audiences here in Pittsburgh. Because what has you most excited about this take on Madame Butterfly and having it for our Pittsburgh audience?
Madame Butterfly has been popular for generations for a reason. And the music is gorgeous, the singing is beautiful, the story is very gripping and compelling. But if you go back and look at old footage of productions from places in decades past, and some of it's cringeworthy right now. It's a sort of dilemma for opera companies about, hey, we wanted to tell this story, but we need to do it in a better way than has been done in the past. And this production will really, I think, bring things to life in a fresh, new, exciting way while being sensitive to some things that might not have been sensitive in the past. So we're excited about that. And we think whether you've never seen Madame Butterfly before or you've seen it 10 times, it's going to be awesome, right? If you've already seen it and thought, oh, well, yeah, I already know that. This is a new take on it and you will love it, right? You haven't seen it this way before. And if you've never seen it before, this is the perfect time to come because again, you'll get that same music, that same singing that's always been in Madame Butterfly, but a little more contemporary spin on it.
Sounds so exciting. So is this something that the Pittsburgh Opera wants to continue to do every season, is to bring something in like this that kind of shifts it a little bit, that kind of pushes the boundaries and finds new ways to reach out and engage new audiences and promote folks like Matthew who are just really at the edge of making opera like what it is in 2025?
Sure. As I mentioned, Pittsburgh Opera is always committed to a pretty diverse repertoire in programming. In a typical season for us, we'll have a Baroque opera from the 1700s. We'll have some more of the quote unquote classic grand operas. We have a lot of contemporary works as well, in all shapes and sizes, in different languages by different composers, etc. So that commitment to a broad season that showcases the breadth of this beautiful art form is something that we will stick with as long as we're here, for sure. Don't necessarily do the same opera year after year. Of course, Madame Butterfly is one where it's about as popular as it gets, and we do it maybe every 6-ish years or so.
Gotcha.
And this particular production, for what it's worth, it was a sort of essentially co-production where Pittsburgh Opera partnered with Cincinnati Opera, where it premiered, Detroit Opera, where it's also been, and Utah Opera. Because it's not inexpensive to conceive and build a new production, and opera companies don't necessarily have the funds to do it all by themselves. But you pool your resources together and unite around a shared vision, and can support someone like Matthew, and then boom, there you go. You bring it to life, and then it can be seen, and then after that, be rented out by other companies across the country. So we've got very high hopes that a lot of people around the country and beyond will be able to see this beautiful production.
Hopefully it continues after its Pittsburgh debut in March. Matthew, I'm really curious, as someone that's creating at the depth and scale that you create at, when you first put this thing out, now you've gone through Cincinnati and Detroit, you're bringing it to Pittsburgh. Do you ever change some things here and there? Do you course correct along the way? I'm just curious through the creative process, how when these things are done, are they set in stone, or is it something that you can continue to riff off of and vibe with?
That's a great question. I guess I'm a little bit more unusual for stage directors because I think many stage directors, once they create the original, it is cut and dry every single sort of revival of the piece. I'm a little different in the sense that I'm consistently reassessing, changing it up based off of how people have responded to it in the past, based off of what I think people in that moment might need it in a specific city, and the performers that are on stage. I'm already in discussions with the team about potential small tweaks, in particular, because Pinkerton through VR enters into the game of Butterfly, where he purchases Butterfly, he owns this house, he goes through levels to eventually be in bed with her at the end of Act 1. And I will say that this idea of companionship through gaming or virtual reality, like we were doing all this research on this game called VR Kanojo from like 2017, where you basically gave a player sort of a virtual girlfriend and scenarios that you could spend time with her, including in her bedroom. It had elements of sort of sexual fantasy, but also really was leaning into giving the game player that kind of level of intimacy that maybe they were missing in reality. We were looking at visual qualities of Identity V's geisha character. And so we were looking at all of those elements, but obviously tech keeps changing, right? So when we were initially looking at this, we were looking at the Oculus 2. Now there's the, what was it, 3S, like things just keep evolving,
right.
tech keeps evolving. And so I think we keep asking here, the production is the same year after year visually. However, tech keeps moving forward and people's perception or feelings on tech keeps shifting. I think it was just in the news yesterday, right? The country now super in panic from ChatGPT's newest rival.
Exactly.
And now everyone's like freaking out about it. And I think we've been delving into that changes the zeitgeist of how an audience is viewing the work that we're making. And so for Pittsburgh Opera, really wanting to tweak little things so that it can speak to people in the moment in Pittsburgh.
That's so exciting to know that, that you can take something that you really love, and then as society changes, as technology changes, you then bring that right into your production as you bring that here to Pittsburgh. And I think if you put a little black and gold somewhere in there, you'll get like rave reviews, just saying. Just always got to throw my little Steelers pun in there just to have a little bit of fun. But this is amazing. I know many of our members here are going to be very excited to check this out. It just seems like you're embracing of technology with this classic, and then being able to bring it to us in a new and fresh way, I think is just so exciting. What have I not covered that people need to know? So when they come out there, we know that they're going to have just an awesome evening of being entertained and I think inspired as well, too.
I should probably mention when the performances are, right? So we have 4 performances. They're all downtown Pittsburgh at the Benedum Center, March 22nd, 25th, 28th, and 30th. You can find all the information you want about the show, including tickets, at pittsburghopera.org/butterfly. And as a special little offer for our friends from the Pittsburgh Technology Council, if you use promo code POPTC, as in Pittsburgh Opera, Pittsburgh Technology Council, POPTC, you can save 20% on your tickets to Madama Butterfly.
That is fantastic and a very generous offer without a doubt. So we'll make sure we put that in the liner notes. Very excited to have Matthew and his crew and team come into Pittsburgh to put this on and put these tweaks to it and take it to yet another level, Matthew. Yeah, very cool. So thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. And like I said, in the liner notes, we have all this here so you can connect. And Matthew, I look forward to seeing you here in Pittsburgh. And Chris, thank you for leading the way and bringing these types of productions to Pittsburgh. Like I keep saying, this is the things that makes Pittsburgh just the phenomenal place that it is. That's for sure.
Yes, can't wait to be with you all for this experience.
It's only a few weeks away. Thanks, guys. Once again,
thanks so much for having us, Jonathan. Appreciate it. Talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Once again, this is Jonathan Kirsting with the Pittsburgh Technology Council and TechVibe Radio, bringing you all the front row seat stories that are making Pittsburgh's tech sector the great place that it is today.